focusing on warm-ups and recovery is really extremely important. Is that kind of what I'm getting out of this essay?
Okay. Yeah. As fluffy as it sounds, I mean, some of those two are probably just as important as the workout itself.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Healthy Living Wichita podcast with GoTime Training. I'm your host, Raymond Elliott, lead personal trainer at GoTime Training in Northeast Wichita, Kansas. I've been in the fitness industry for over 20 years now, and I've seen it all. This podcast cuts through all the fads and gimmicks to give you the science-based truth on all things fitness and nutrition, so you don't have to try to figure it out on your own. If you want to live happier and healthier and get the scoop on how to work out, eat right, and keep a positive mindset, you're in the right place. It's go time. Now, let's get to the show.
All right. Welcome to another podcast for Healthy Living Wichita. Yeah. Yes. So we got our esteemed colleague here, special guest Jake Linn. So I will say over the last 20 years, I've obviously tried to learn a lot through development and just personal experiences. But Jake has been one of the personal trainers that I've actually have learned a lot from personally. I still use a lot of the nuggets that you taught me. He's kind of a guru when it comes to functional movements training and mobility and strength weights and everything. So I've always appreciated it. I admire your intelligence. One of the most educated and smart guys that I've got to work with. So I'm not overly bound to you, but I still even yesterday in the team meeting or the other day where I used the hiding the broccoli in the fruit smoothie. Oh, yeah. So tons of little nuggets I've got from him. I love having somebody that's like-minded, that understands the importance of all those things. So welcome, Jake Linn. Why don't you give us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Appreciate that introduction.
Of course.
So I'm Jake Linn. Just like Raymond, I've been here. He's been here right at 8 years, and I'm coming up on my 8 years in August.
Yeah.
Like he said, a lot about my background is a lot focused around enhancing movement patterns as well as increasing range of motion, mobility, stuff like that. So on the outside here, of course, a lot of people know I'm still in the National Guard, so yes. I still work with that as well. And apart with that, I'm also a master fitness trainer with the Army side of this as well, so implementing some of the new PT standards that are coming out with them. So cool. Kind of help roll that out with some of these units that are here in Kansas. So
yeah. So obviously Jake is highly qualified. I'm glad that I get to work with him and got to work with him pretty much my whole time at GoTime. He's helped tons of people in our community, and that's kind of what we're still doing here.
Yeah.
So I know kind of when we asked you to come on, you talked to other people about kind of what's important, what's people's ideas, and some things that we were actually going over our last Tuesday meeting. We were going over 6-phase dynamic warm-up and some of the things we were talking about, just how people don't really always like to do them and they kind of just pass through them. And I know some of your clients, and it's something that you're really knowledgeable about is, why should, tell the viewers out there, why is it important? Why do we do a warm-up? Why should they? Should they do a warm-up?
Yeah, so that's a big question. I think that's a big misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to training.
We hear it called fluff.
Yeah, exactly. Like they think it's a lot of unnecessary fluff that goes into taking away a part of their training day, right? So yeah, they're very limited on time on how they come in here or their workouts outside of here, that they think that warm-up is going to take away from their actual workout. So they're not expecting to get what they could be getting within the time that they used for a warm-up towards their training, right? So
right. No reason for it, right?
Yeah,
you're just wasting my time.
Yeah, and I think that's a big misconception, because I think a lot of times people think of a warm-up as just this, I'm just going to stretch a little bit and then take away some time and then go into my workout, right? Well, the warm-up itself is, how I see it, is two different sides throughout the day. So if you're somebody that comes into the morning, kind of like we were talking about Tuesday in the meeting, if you come in the morning, your body's going to be at a stage of homeostasis to where there's not a lot of stimulus that's waking you up, right? You're going to be a lot different than somebody that's been working 10 hours a day on their feet, moving stuff around, who comes in at night. Right, so they've had a lot of stimulus to bring their bodies out of homeostasis and actually start adding a little bit of stress. So if I worked in the morning, my warm-up routines would be a lot different than if it was throughout the day and the evening when I'm working out. Right. It's totally different. So some of that same aspects still apply on both sides. It's just you can kind of push aside some things and then go right into your workout, right?
Yeah, which is really smart, because some of the things we talk about is like ritual training. So there's obviously, like you said, depending on what you're training that day, what your goals are, and even what time of day
Mm-hmm.
is going to dictate a little bit more of your warm up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we use a term. Well, I use it in terms of what it's used through different organizations like the NSCA, NASM, some of these higher thought of organizations is a term called RAMP, right? So RAMP is a warm up acronym that's based on respiration, activation, mobilization, and potentiation, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's where a lot of my stuff kind of comes from, but then I kind of modify it to my own way to meet each certain client's demands on what they need most, right? So if you're coming in the morning, the first thing you probably want to do is try to get some respiration going, so try to get some blood flowing, get the heart rate going,
Right.
synovial fluids going in the joints, stuff like that, because you don't want to train cold. That's you're just going to hinder your performance, and you're not going to get the most out of your training. Vice versa on the evening side, I will probably eliminate some of that warm up, that general warm up, as far as like trying to get a light jog in or something like that, trying to get the respiration, because you're probably already moving enough throughout the day to where you won't need to emphasize that a whole lot, and you can probably focus a little bit more on your mobilization, activation, and kind of like your dynamic warm up, and then going into more of like a specific warm up.
You basically don't have to wake people up. You don't have to
Right.
get everything going because they've already had that.
Exactly.
They probably have enough adrenaline just driving over.
Yeah.
in Wichita traffic.
So yeah, and you'll have some people that towards the end of the day they may feel a little fatigued, and something like a general warm up may bring them back up because you're adding a different stimulus to their day. So it's little stuff like that that's involved into the warm up that could actually benefit your workout, your training day a lot better than if you just didn't do it at all and then go right into it, right? So you're protecting yourself from injury. You're actually getting the joints warmed up. You're not jumping into load automatically, stuff like that. So you're actually developing movement-based patterns that you're going to be using within your workout itself. So
that's sweet. So I can hear a lot of the viewers out there. They're saying, yes, I obviously, and I've heard this myself. I don't want to be injured, and everybody kind of has that in the back of the mind. But we know that everybody's real, hot spot is I either want to be stronger and have more muscle and be able to push more, or I want to look better. So in that mindset where most people are going to have their focus on that, not everybody. We have a lot of people that come in here just because they want to have more mobility and not get injured, which is a really smart reason to work with a trainer. How do we about the people like, dude, I just want to look better. I want to be stronger. I want to have more muscle. All those things. Why would a warm up be something good for somebody like that?
So now
they're not concerned with injury.
Sure. So now that we can kind of mitigate some of the injury, prolonged injury stuff that comes afterwards of not warming up. So now we can start looking at how can we build the warm up to where now we can make it a part of the actual workout, right? So it doesn't have to be I'm going to do like this stretch or this dynamic movement, right? High knee pulls, whatever. Like now we can start once we go through that ramp process. Now we can start getting into some more of your more active type of warming up, whether it's a potentiation type stuff specifically. You can do like jumping jacks, push-ups, stuff like that, some calisthenic type stuff, higher rep, you can tempo that out, you can change the times, the reps, the sets of it. Like you can build it to where that warm-up, by the end of that warm-up, it feels like you just got the first part of your workout done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so a warm-up doesn't have to be, it can be a workout.
Right.
It should be for most people.
Yes.
So I heard you say you the term potentiation.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that we have some extremely intelligent viewers out there. Hopefully, I mean they're listening to us, so they have to be pretty smart.
Yeah.
But dive in a little bit deeper for some of our clients that or people in our community that might not exactly know what that means.
Yeah. So with potentiation, when we look at the warm up process of it, so obviously that's going to be the latter part of our ramp process, right? So
the P.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to warm up using the movements or the exact movements that we're going to be using within your workout itself. So let's say I had a bench press, right? There's a couple different ways that you can use potentiation. One being you can use some of the movers that you're going to be using in form of the bench press, whether it's triceps, whether it's push-ups, maybe throwing in some core in there.
Right.
Or you can do something a little bit more specifically and do 3 or 4 sets of warm-up sets on a bench press, right? So basically you're just going to be mimicking or utilizing the same muscle groups that you're going to be using for your workout itself.
Yeah, and they have shown that there's a carryover now where you actually could have a little bit more increase in strength,
Mm-hmm.
which could produce a little bit more overload, which could make you have a better bench,
Exactly.
or actually put on more lean body mass, which could help out body composition.
Mhm.
So I think that people they forget on things, even like injury. Obviously when we're young, we don't care. Our body's great, but I always tell people if you have an injured knee, are you going to be able to squat as much as without an injured knee? Injured people don't work out, or if they do work out, they don't work out as hard. You're going to be able to run up those stairs or do that mile jog if your hips hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So injury has a lot to do with your goals, but I don't think most people look at those. So that's a huge part of dynamic warm-up is preventing injury, as we talked. But it also can literally make people stronger, activate those muscles, and so they might be utilizing more muscles, which could be burning more calories, or lifting more weight, which could help burn more calories or build more lean body mass.
Yeah, and that's a prime example is so if you take somebody whose main goal is to probably try to max out their bench press, right? So you're not automatically going to throw your max bench press or what you think your max bench press is on a bench press and then just go right into it, right? No. So there's going to be like a step process to where you're going to slowly start ramping up your weight through warm-up sets to get you to your moderate set, to your higher, and then to your, hopefully, your max rep set, right? So a lot of times with me, like when I'm lifting for 5 or 6 sets, of let's say 5 or 8 reps, my third and fourth set is probably my best set.
Right, yeah. Your central nervous system starts to stimulate, start to build up some of that warm-up, even the synovial fluid.
Yep.
Just amazing. Just like you literally say, you got to grease up the knees. That's exactly what it's doing. So what I'm getting at is a warm-up is very important if people actually want to have less injury, better movement, but also have better composition. They should do a warm-up.
So you're looking at adding a little bit more calorie expenditure through your workout as well. So it's not like just driving in and we're just going to go right into your warm-up sets and this. So like some of that activation and some of that movement that goes into that warm-up should be enough of an intensity and volume to where calories start firing out. So
sweet. Yeah, and I even know a little bit, not going too much into sarcomeres, don't want to get too crazy, but just having muscles in a neutrality, which you could do by fighting those muscle imbalances through some of your warm-ups and activating those, can literally have your muscles where they can create better force and better production through the movements that they're doing. So that can help you burn more calories. So for our viewers out there, as we're obviously trying to help them out, what would be like a basic typical, if they were going into the gym today and like, man, Jake, what he said made a lot of sense. I want to feel better. I want to be stronger. I want to look better. I want to have less injury. I'm going to start doing warm-ups. What's a good maybe typical, throw you on the spot here, what's maybe a good typical warm-up or something easy for somebody to do today if they went to the gym?
Yeah, so I mean, it's as cliche and as normal as everybody's heard this all before. Like if I'm taking it just from a homeostasis on the body perspective, right? So I wake up, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to hop right on the treadmill, right? I'm going to either walk for 3 or 4 minutes, or I'm going to do a light jog, whether I want to do some cycling, something like that, something to get the body stimulated and get some of that respiration, that heart rate up, that muscle warm, synovial fluids going, okay? And then I'm going to start going into some of my activation stuff. So a lot of times we see here, we do a lot of glute bridges, single leg glute bridges, right?
Love those.
Some banded pull aparts, whatever. Some of those things, there's a lot of activation that's going into those muscles depending on what the movement of the day for me would be. But for everybody else, we try to make it a full body kind of perspective because everybody does a full body here, right?
Most people, right, yeah.
And then from there, then we start getting into a little bit more movement aspect. So for me, I would do something like maybe some walking lunges, some body-weighted squats, goblet squats, whatever, push-ups. Some of that stuff I'm going to really focus on how my muscles are going to react to a pushy motion, to a squatty motion, stuff like that. And then from there, that's when I'll go into my potentiation or my more specific warm-up, start doing some light bench pressing or some tricep, get some tricep activation, some core stuff going, just kind of the muscle groups that are going to be needed for my most technical or intense lift.
Demanding lifts. Yeah, excellent. Good stuff there. So we've kind of tackled dynamic warm-up. Sounds like something that we should all be doing, and you kind of hit some basics that people can do. And I suggest people looking up RAMP. That's a great way, and it's just how I explain. It's a great acronym. But what about recovery on off days? I know that's another thing. So we have a lot of people that struggle with dynamic warm-ups and the need for that. Is there really a need for recovery or off days, or how should we do anything on a recovery? Should there be an active recovery we hear sometimes?
Sure. So I think that's another one. So I think around here with our general population that we work with, rest and recovery should not be synonymous or should not be interchangeable.
So those
From
are
my
separate?
perspective, yes.
Okay.
So let's take a look at rest day, right? So we have a rest day. Rest in terms itself is doing absolutely nothing, right?
I can do that pretty well.
Getting adequate sleep, right? That's going to be a prime day to where you can get some good quality sleep, get some good nutrition throughout your day, and just basically just relax, right? Let your muscles come back to normal, let your joints decompress, all that stuff, right? So a lot of our general populations probably won't have that problem because they come 2 or 3 times a week, right? So it leaves them 3 or 4 days at home to kind of do what they want to do, right?
Right.
And then with active recovery, so now we're looking at what can I do to move but not put stress on my body, right? So like day-to-day activities, walking, everybody walks, right? That could be considered active recovery, right? Doing some sort of self-myofascial release or foam rolling, stretching, working on movement patterns. So that was the one big thing to this whole COVID deal was I got a lot of active recovery in, right? So there was a lot of things that I was doing to try to minimize or mitigate some of these prolonged nagging injuries that I had and kind of work through those and actually see if I can kind of fix those to alleviate those, right?
Yeah.
So that was a prime time for me to get a lot of active recovery in and not really focus so much on rest because I wasn't lifting as demanding as I would inside the gym, right?
Yeah, you wasn't doing your daily activity, which was really surprising to me. And I don't think I ate much differently, but I did see a little increase just because we're a lot more active for the day sometimes we think. So if you're not, then that's something that you probably need to provide. And I think walking has been shown to be one of the most underrated things. It's been kind of a nice positive to this whole pandemic situation we've been in. You see a lot more people walking. But global SMR or foam rolling, getting a foam roller out there is probably another really good thing to do. And you said that even like working on some of those maybe kind of like the same things we were doing, like maybe a dynamic warm-up or some of those movement patterns and focusing on those can be really beneficial. Yep. I should have done that.
As much as people don't like doing that stuff, I mean, the benefit aspect of actually going through daily and just 2 or 3 sets of just working through movement with body weight and just practicing your movement patterns pays dividends inside the gym.
Yeah, well, it's motor unit learning, so you're learning how to move your body properly, which sometimes that's was one benefit I really loved about doing more virtual and being people doing more at home is that we got an opportunity to kind of step back because we want to progress people as well. And we know that we have to challenge people and we have to show them progressions, weights, but it gave me an opportunity as their coach to step back and like, we're really going to learn how to use our body. And when they created a lot of internal force and really thought about it, they found it would be extremely difficult. And now I think they're translating that same stuff now with load. And I'm seeing a really increase in a lot of my clients' ability to do those, better patterns, less injury, and strength has went up.
And that's the thing. A couple of my clients as well, I mean, they had very limited weight, and we were going through some stuff like just some light RDLs and stuff like that. They come back here in the gym, their deadlifts pretty much almost mimic exactly how they left. As far as weight and load.
Yeah, they say sometimes like the best corrective exercise is just actually your basic movement patterns and doing those appropriately. You're a lot of times are going to strengthen potentially the weak muscles, and you're going to help stretch to potentially the over-dominant muscles, and you're going to create that good form and technique that's going to work for you. So kind of learn how to do your body, and those are things that you can practice outside here, and it'll give you a little bit extra calorie expenditure than you normally would do. And then you said complement that with also just some purely rest days is probably beneficial as well.
I think with recovery and rest, I think a lot of people take it for granted. And then, because a lot of people throughout the day, let's say I have an evening client, right? Sometimes they'll almost come in feeling like they're jet lagged, right? So they real fatigued, real exhausted, right? They don't want to do anything.
That's when you start singing, right?
That's when we start the karaoke out.
I feel that sometimes. Sorry.
No, but so then we can kind of take a step back from their actual training program, and we can actually kind of dive into a little bit more of just focusing on movement-based exercises, right? So we don't have to extreme overload or anything like that. We don't have to, crank up the intensity or anything like that. We can strictly just work on movement patterns, and because of their mental state of being in a jet lag state, I mean, they're still going to benefit from it, and it's still going to feel really difficult for them.
Right. Yeah, you sometimes have to adapt to where your clients are, even though you can create programming. That's where sometimes, like periodization, sometimes you have to look because depending on how your client comes in that day, they've been sick, they didn't get very much sleep. Might not be the best day to do a PR.
Exactly.
But it might be, they might like, I got a lot of rest and we're supposed to be doing a PR or doing more of a movement-based day-to-day. Like, hey, today's the day for us to hammer it. You're coming in really good. You feel great. You've had plenty of rest. Let's pick it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So
And with the recovery, I mean, it's not just taking a step back and just trying to not put as much stress on your body. You got to look at things like nutrition, hydration, and stuff like that. That plays an important role in how your training day goes, how your muscles respond,
right.
and how they repair, all that stuff to actually benefit and get you the maximum results on exactly what you're trying to invest in.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like you said, for a lot of our general public, they're not overly intense and crazy, trying to go crazy. They're coming here 2 or 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
We're obviously making sure that they're getting in good dynamic warm-ups, good recovery, stretching. But it's amazing how a lot of people out there, it seems like they almost do the opposite of what they don't understand what could truly benefit them. So they're like eating very low calorie, doing extreme amounts of cardio on their rest days, working out 2 or 3 hours a day, hardly ever taking a day off. And they're not knowing why. They're kind of spinning their wheels and not seeing as much results. And if they actually paid attention to some of those other parts, not sleeping well, not eating well, taking supplements, fat burners and all those things in the spike to look better and feel better, and they end up not and feeling like crap.
It almost has a diminishing return on what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So, and then, when we get those people who, let's say, a runner runs 6 days a week, and then, the 7th day they go to the gym and try to lift weights and do a little bit of cardio here and there, you'll start to see how their body kind of responds, and you'll start seeing, okay, they're going into almost like an overreaching phase, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually that's going to turn into some what am I trying to say? OTS.
Yes. Like overtraining?
Overtraining, there you go.
Yeah, so if we're overreaching is getting to that stage. Some people actually will take themselves there to move back to put themselves to actually enhance growth. So we always have to kind of make sure that our viewers know. And then, of course, overtraining, I think most people understand that. And it's difficult to get in that aspect. But I think you can. I think diet really compounds that. I think you're eating pretty well, getting enough protein, probably getting close to your calorie goals, you're probably all right. But when you stockpile that with really poor nutrition, poor sleeping, and lots of conditioning, not saying that we're against cardio, but when you overdo that, which is very common for a lot of people that love it, which I understand, you can get to that point where you get into that overreaching or overtraining aspects, and like you said, have diminishing returns or actually reversibility.
Yeah, and then that's where you start seeing some injuries, and then you start seeing people fall off and taking a week off here, and you don't see them again for another week after that, So it kind of has that mental downfall of just like, man, I just don't want to do it.
It's counterproductive.
Yeah, so it kind of just takes away from the real reason on why you wanted to train in the first place.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. I'd rather somebody give me 90%, 4 days a week than give me 150%, but only be able to give me 50 for the next other 3 days because they're tired, wore out, and can't. So you're not seeing the same amount of results.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds like really looking at our body, focusing on warm-ups and recovery is really extremely important. Is that kind of what I'm getting out of this?
Okay. Yeah. As fluffy as it sounds, I mean, some of those two are probably just as important as the workout itself.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's mindset.
If you ever go into training and then you injure yourself, the last thing you're going to be thinking about the next day is going back to training.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they noticed that with sports athletes. I mean, back in the day, sports athletes are obviously a different breed of people. They're extremely motivational, and they believe that the more is more versus more is less type of mentality. The more I could train, the more I could train. So even when coaches would give them, they would overtrain all the time, even when they gave them those recovery days or those deload weeks, or they would go somewhere else and train. And what they found out through studies is that those people that didn't take deload weeks on their higher intensity days actually did less than the people that did. So smart sports athletes and these, abilities, they have deload weeks or have less training. And that was a big problem in MMA because they didn't have the same kind of coaching as you would see in NFL or Major League Baseball. And there was tons of cross training, so nobody could really monitor. I couldn't monitor you because you might be training at 5 different MMA facilities. And if you notice with MMA, obviously it's a brutal sport. You see a lot more injury. You see a lot more people having to cancel almost every UFC card for our UFC fighters. Always have lots of people, lots of injuries. And it's because they're not monitoring their recovery, their deload weeks. They are now more because it became such a great sport that there is strength and conditioning coaches. There are personal trainers. There's MMA certified trainers that are looking at those things. But before then, it was just like their mindset, train.
It's an intensity thing that a lot of people, especially sports athletes, they go through a whole annual training phase, right? So, or training program, and then they break it up into different phases, and it's actually programmed out for that whole year to where you're forced to take a deload week, right?
Yeah.
So you get to some of these higher intensity exercises like CrossFit, and there's nothing wrong with CrossFit. Like I support CrossFit. I've never seen a fitness industry get so many females underneath the bar in my life.
They're one of the biggest points for like the female revolution of fitness, and they also extremely high culture, which I believe in a lot. Which I love culture.
But they have such a high intensity and high anaerobic endurance that the reason why you see a lot of these athletes get injured in that facade is because they don't take deloads, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them don't understand the deload or the recovery process behind it. They think I'm going to go 2 or 3 times a week, hit some wads, and then come back and do it again.
Right.
And then next thing you know, they're injured, and that's sometimes how CrossFit gets a bad rap.
It's a lot bad rap in some of those aspects. So yeah. So really, if you want to train like an athlete, you're gonna have a warm up, because you see athletes, they're doing dynamic warm-ups, they're doing band pull aparts, they're doing mild fascia release, they're doing thorough gun, they're doing stretching, they're doing recovery days, they're doing deload weeks. So if you really want to train like an athlete, you need to have a focus in those aspects.
And you got to have it built out to where, okay, I know I'm taking it from, this is my start, middle, and end, right? So all the way from your warm up, your training cycle, into your recovery.
Excellent. Well, that's all really, really good stuff, Jay. I know that Andrea's told us before that we have like a 30-minute limit. I don't know where we're at because my MacBook decided to down. So hopefully all this is recorded.
Yeah.
But we're probably close to the end of this. Is there anything? I mean, I think that's a lot of great information. I think that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah.
Always just kind of ask, is there anything that you would like to share or let anybody else know?
No, I mean, just
Closing
if you're
thoughts?
listening to these podcasts, I mean, there's a lot of good information that we try to put out. Especially with the limited time that we have with each individual, right? So we don't have a whole lot of time with our one-on-one clients or the SPTs or the group, especially the group training, where they don't get that one-on-one interaction. So the education aspect for them is kind of minimal. And being able to listen to some of these podcasts with the information that we can give out is going to help everybody in the long run. So whether you're a firm believer or not, just listening and kind of getting a perspective on things is going to be more beneficial than not allowing us to be given the time to educate you on the floor. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's a great closing thought.
Yeah.
Well, Jake, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Once again. Thank you everybody for listening to us, spending a little bit of time. Please share all those great things. Love each other and take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Living Wichita podcast with GoTime Training. If you enjoyed today's show and want to get started with your own fitness journey, I'd love to help kickstart your goals. How do 4 60-minute personal training sessions for $99 with me sound? Head over to www.gotimetraining.com/podcast to claim yours. I can't wait to meet you.